Hey there, welcome to Supercharged Fridays. I am 2 minutes late. Apologies, had a little bit of technical difficulty. It's all solved now. Welcome. If you're in the audience and you're watching live, come in the comments and say hello. Where are you watching from? Where are you physically? Not just like city country, but are you in your car? Are you like, at home? Are you like having tea like me? Welcome, come in. And this is going to be a fantastic month. We have so much lined up for you this month. So today we're going to talk about mental health in the career space, particularly. Next week at the same time, we've got Ed Han, who's coming in as he's a top recruiter, and we're going to talk about ATS, all geek out on all things applicant tracking systems. Give me a second, I'm going to catch my breath. Applicant tracking systems. And the week after that, the last Friday of February, we are going to talk about feedback, the art and science of giving feedback with team performance coach Helen Dunnett. So, without further ado, let's talk about today mental health during a tough career transition. Who's not been through tough career transitions, right? And mental health, I mean, it's one of those things that gets the word gets tossed around like, I don't know, like free donuts at a subway station. So I'm really happy to have Jessica here to talk to us about it, because Jessica brings in very unique perspectives to this topic, not only because she's a career coach for mid to senior professionals and has seen these things firsthand, but she's also a licensed therapist. That is something that separates her from a lot of other people. It's 8 in the morning for her. She's joining us all the way from Boston. Jessica, welcome to Supercharged Fridays.
Hi, thank you. So glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, Jessica. So I see comments coming in. Thank you guys for joining us live. And I'm going to flash you guys on like screen. But in the meantime, Jessica, for anyone who's not familiar with you or your work, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you started doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, great. So I was a therapist, as you said, and I did that work for about 10 years. So did outpatient work, so working with people in a substance abuse setting and also a mental health setting, like traditional therapy, as you think of therapy. And then I had my first daughter. I have two daughters now. But when I had my first one, I decided I wasn't going to go back to therapy. I wasn't going to start a private therapy practice. I needed to do something else. And that's when I started coaching. And really, the overlap between coaching and mental health is my sweet spot. And just a tiny bit about
No pun intended. We're
yeah.
gonna make a lot of jokes. Don't worry, guys. I've taken her permission, but this is a sweet spot. Yeah, I
Sweet
mean, how
spot.
can we
Yeah,
not?
exactly.
How can
Exactly.
we not laugh about it? Dan says hi. Quick shout out to Dan. It's
I know.
early
Oh my God,
morning.
it's Dan Roth. Hi,
It's
Dan.
5 a.m. in California. So for anybody watching, please give a round of applause to Dan Roth. No, Dan, you don't have to switch because he's written about like I'm having coffee. Do you having coffee at 5 in the morning, dude? You're not going back to sleep, obviously.
No, he's not.
So
Dan doesn't
um,
sleep. He's got twins, so he doesn't
yeah.
sleep. No.
Oh yeah. So
Nope.
sorry, Jessica, you were saying then you switched to coaching.
Yeah, so I switched to coaching, and my story is that my dad really hated his job, and it really impacted how he felt about work. He hated his work, and it impacted our whole family. So when I started coaching, I said, I don't want to see people go through that same thing, and so that's the work I do now.
Wow. Okay. When people say you need to find your why matters, it doesn't have to be so complicated. Like, I love what you just said. I saw what it did to our family, and it stemmed. I'm sure there were many complications. I'm not oversimplifying here. But one of the ways it stemmed from unhappiness at work. And the family felt it. Like, we're not robots. When someone is unhappy at work, it affects the entire close ecosystem around. So, really appreciate you sharing that, Jessica. And another thing I want to highlight here is please, 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 let's not forget. Yes, I said please 4 times. Coaching and therapy are not the same thing.
Yes.
So if you have a coach and you start getting into past events and how you've been impacted by them, any sort of trauma, we don't have to think of trauma as big things coming from war. There can be trauma from childhood, etc. A coach, even if they are a certified coach, they are not qualified to talk to you about it. So just a little bit, a quick shout out I wanted to give on that. Our friend Nigel is joining us, and he says there's never been a better time. I completely agree with you. And friends joining us from around the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you. So let's get cracking into this, Jessica. First of all, before we forget, please follow. Okay, one second. I'm navigating multiple here. Please follow Jessica. If you don't know of her already, I highly recommend you follow Jessica's posts on LinkedIn. Jessica, your way of posting is not the classic dry. I mean, that's what I like about it. There's a little personality in every post. Like, tell me before we get into it. Tell me like your thought process and how when you think of a topic and you'd like, I'm going to post this.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking about that. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. So now, yeah, I love to have fun. That's just one of the things about me. I love to have fun, and so the way that I post is reflects the way that I work with people. So it's not all like joking around. Obviously, we get serious work done.
Yes.
And we cover serious topics like mental health. But I really want people to think about things in a way that is interesting and fun, and gets their attention and moves them into a lighter space sometimes. And it doesn't all have to be work, work, work. So if I can grab somebody's attention or brighten somebody's day, or make somebody feel something different from what they were feeling when they were just stuck in a bad work situation, I'm going to try to do that. So, I want to try to add a smile to somebody's day while I'm teaching them something or while I'm helping them with something. So that's my goal.
I'm really glad you mentioned it, Jessica. When I asked this question to you right now, in my head, one voice said, "Can you get on topic, please? This is very like tangent." I actually don't think it is. I'll tell you a funny story, quick story here. I was about to start a podcast episode with a guest of mine, and normally before I click record, before I press record, we just kind of chit chat a little bit here and there, and I'm like, it's gonna be. I mean, I didn't think she was nervous, but I said, this is going to be fun. She said, fun is very important to me. She said, fun is one of my values. And I said, actually, you know what? It's mine as well. Life is serious enough as it is.
Absolutely.
We're not saying we're making light of other people's bad or sad situations, but what's wrong with having fun once in a while? So, okay, amazing. Love this start. So, I wanted to see a quick comment here. Our friend G in Texas says, I had a job that led me to getting sick and having to walk away out of embarrassment. It took me a long time. G, you know what? Not alone, right? You're not alone. I think that a lot of people will relate. I even have two questions from someone on the anonymous side because they didn't feel comfortable. One day it will happen. I hope, Jessica, that we can talk about things like this without some sort of a social stigma. So explain to us, Jessica. We are in a classroom today. You are the teacher. What is mental health? Like, what does a mentally healthy person look like?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I think if you compare it to physical health,
Yeah.
right? So physical health is a state of feeling well, right? Being resilient in the face of stress and traumas. So mental health is the same thing. It's the state of feeling well. It's the state of being resilient in the face of mental stress and mini mental traumas. So not necessarily big traumas, but mini traumas that happen to us during the course of our lives. If you're mentally healthy, you can get by day to day without kind of breaking down. When there are bigger things that happen to us, there are normal reactions to that. So if you have an ongoing stressful situation, even a mentally healthy person is going to have a reaction to that. That's normal. Doesn't mean you're not mentally healthy. So mental health is being able to deal with day-to-day life in a way that keeps you keep going and you feel good.
Okay. Okay. That's really helpful. We're going to have day to day stuff, right? The shiz, little bit,
Mm-hmm.
little shiz, big shiz.
Yep.
So, what you're saying is it's okay to react. In fact, if you react, you're human,
Mm-hmm.
but then get up and move again. Is that what you're saying? And not stay
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's about resilience. It's about being able to move forward and not having it impact you really negatively. It's about your ability to function in day to day life. So if you look actually at how clinicians will diagnose mental health problems,
Yeah.
one of the criteria is how it's impacting your life. So you can have all these things that are happening to you. If you're looking at an anxiety disorder, if you're looking at depression, one of the things is it negatively impacting your life? um, and if the answer is yes, that is another piece of information that will tell you, yes, this is a thing that is adding on to the diagnosis, that's
Okay.
a
Okay.
factor. So,
So let's peel that up a bit because I think that a lot of us self-diagnose. We're like, I think like G said, right? This was a tough, this was an embarrassing time, but others seem to get it.
mhm.
Now, on the face of it, it looked like they get it. So, what does it mean when you say when it affects you negatively? Simplify that for us.
Yeah. So, are you finding that it impacts your relationships? Is it getting in the way of the things that you want to do day to day? Like, um, are you not able to do the tasks that you want to do, take care of the people that you want to take care of, get out of bed, exercise, complete your work, any of the things that you're wanting to do, is it getting in the way of your life? And if you find that the answer is yes, then it's impacting you negatively.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it can feel like it's a pretty gray area, but the way you're explaining it, you should be able to have yes or no answers
Mhm.
to those type of questions, right? There's no two ways about it.
Mhm.
All right, so we're gonna I have a big loaded question here for you, Jessica. While I'm asking that, so I really welcome our members of the audience. If you guys have questions, chuck them into the comment. I see one already. Salim, I promise we're gonna get to that one. So Jessica, how do we protect this mental health? It sounds so precious, right? And like we can see something physical, we are like, oh, I'm so tired, I need to be in bed, physical. But mental, it's harder to diagnose. If you have access to a medical professional, you can have it diagnosed. We don't want to necessarily get there. We want to prevent that from happening as far as possible and be healthy. What are some things we can do on a day-to-day basis when we are going through a tough career transition, like we've just been laid off, right?
Mhm.
Peloton this week, so many companies every week, savings, costs, whatever. People are the casualty always. In the beginning, you're like, oh, I'm so glad. I needed a break, and then
Yeah.
after a while, the reality sets in, right? So here, your sweet spot of your sweet spot of your professional coach, as well as your therapist, help us out with what can we do?
Yeah. So I think there's two levels, right? And I kind of alluded to it there. The first level is, the space between where you're like the space where you're trying to take care of it yourself, right? And then there's the next level where you feel like, okay, I need help taking care of this. I think in that space where you feel like you need help taking care of it, I think we really need to destigmatize that space, um, because if you had a physical disease, if you had something that was really physical, and in the mental health space we use diabetes a lot as an example. So you can manage diabetes by eating right and exercising, right? There's a lot you can do on your own, but there may come a time where you need to see a doctor and you need to get on medication. And you wouldn't be ashamed of doing that if that's what you needed to do. And the same is true for mental health. You may need to see a doctor, you may need to get on medication, you may need to see a therapist, and there's no shame in that. You just may need to take care of it medically. Um, so at that level, really trying to destigmatize that for yourself and as a society, that's one thing. The other level, when you're trying to take care of it yourself, I think the destigmatization is one piece of it. So being able to talk about it with people that you know and love, but also just self-care is another thing. So, reaching out to your friends and not isolating yourself. Um, Eating right, exercising, meditating, sleeping, all those self-care things that you probably already know how to do. And then, if it's a situation like you've lost your job or um, you're in a tough job situation, doing what you can do, whether it's getting a coach or whether it's watching lives like this, in order to move that situation forward so that you're not just stuck in that terrible situation, but that you're making a plan to move out of it.
It sounds like what you're saying is there's always a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like it's like you need to take a decision
Mm-hmm.
and make it happen, and don't scoff at words like self-care, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it means different things to different people. Here it means putting yourself first. So very sort of similar questions around it, right? LinkedIn user, any preventive measures to tackle it? And I saw another one. um, what helps you to diagnose it? Let's say you don't have access to medical help. How
Mm-hmm.
would you know? I think we addressed it in some way already, Jessica. How would you know if you're ill, mentally ill, even though it's a clinical diagnosis, right? But is there any way specifically that it can be done at home?
Well, I mean, you could, if you really wanted a diagnosis, you can pull up the criteria on the internet, right? I mean, you can say, but what are the diagnostic criteria for depression, right? You can pull that up on the internet and do a self checklist. There are
Yeah.
checklists like that for anxiety, for depression. So you can put yourself through that if you want to. Having a diagnosis, though, is just a name, right? What
Mm.
matters really is what you do with that. So you can say, oh, yes, I meet the clinical criteria for depression. Now what? Right? So, what is, do I have access to a doctor? Do I have access to medication? What are the other treatments that I can do? Um, one of the, some of the treatments that really do help are exercise. Exercise is really proven to be something that helps a lot. Um, and I would have to look up, some of the statistics, but I believe it's almost on par with medication. Exercise helps a ton. Talking to people, reaching out, um, meditation. So some of those self-care things. The thing about depression is that there's like a space between, the help is over here, how you're feeling is over here, and there's a space in between where you can't see how to get there, right? And that's the real problem. So that's where medication can help, because it can kind of get some of the fog out of there. That's where reaching out to people can help. That's where exercise can help. So just doing it, even if it doesn't feel like it's going to be helpful, just doing it can
Right.
be helpful. Um,
And I think that's a particularly good point where, sometimes it's so sad, Jessica. Like people say, I actually don't have a support network because
mhm,
my friends don't get it.
mhm,
And it's not necessarily that you're going through a career challenge, transition. Maybe you're just unhappy, right? And I have a question about that a person asked, and I'm going to get to that. So when you have people around, it does help
Mhm.
to sort of, ease the wound a little bit. And without it, these are some things. And going out for a walk in nature, even if you live in a big city, there has to be a park somewhere, a little place where you can just go. And I know that sounds simple, but how many times do we actually do it?
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? So totally understand that. So now I want to ask you something, because this is something that came up yesterday. Someone has asked this anonymously. He's new at his job, he's getting
Mhm.
a lot of work, he's got huge amount of anxiety because he's like, I don't quite get it. And if I ask for, like, I don't know how to do it, he's like, I'm going to look foolish. This is the time I need to prove myself, right? Instead of saying I don't know. And it's affecting him very negatively, and he's become very depressed over the weekends. Imagine in a new job, you're already not looking forward to Monday morning,
Yeah.
right? So how can you help this person, Jessica?
Yeah. So I mean that kind of anxiety is pretty normal, because it's in reaction to a real situation, right? It's not like kind of a free floating anxiety that's not
Yeah.
reacting to anything. Um, so I would say, is there anybody? Is there a mentor? Is there anybody um, that could help you?
Mhm.
Could you find even anybody on the internet? Could you go into, like, this is a younger person. I don't know what that person does, but could you go into some kind of forum and see, could you find somebody that can help you with some of the things that you're trying to learn? Could you take some online courses? Are there are there ways that you can learn some of the things that you're trying to learn? Um, so that so that you can get a handle on what you're learning and what you're trying to do. Chances are, and again, I don't know the details, but chances are that this is a steep learning curve, but it probably will take him a matter of months to learn what he's trying to do, not years. This is a short-term problem that he can get a handle on, and then he'll feel a lot better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
make a plan to tackle it, get some help, and it will be okay.
It'll be okay. Yeah, just have patience with it. Make a plan, like Jessica said, and stick to it. Right. The hardest thing is sticking to it. All right. So we're gonna get into. We have a lot of questions here. If you guys want to rewatch the replay, watch the replay. By the way, if you're watching on replay, put in hashtag replay so we know you're there. But we've covered quite a bit here already. What does mental health look like? Jessica talked about why she started, doing what she's doing, and a lot of it will be relatable, right, in a lot of families that have experienced it. Now, I want to get into the questions. I have a question here from Celine. It's a very specific question, Jessica. So, don't know if you have any thoughts here. How do I get rid of anorexia nervosa? That's a
Yeah.
medical term for anorexia.
Yeah, yes. So I'm not an expert on anorexia, and I would say that that's very specific, and that you probably should see a therapist for that, um, and just get support. I can't, in this short time and in this format, I
Yeah,
can't. You just need support for that.
yeah,
Um, but I wish you the best, and I do hope that you um, get some help with that, because I think there is support out there. There are treatment programs out there.
yeah. And Celine, thank you for asking. It takes courage to ask, right?
It
So we know
really
that.
does. It
So
really does.
appreciate that. And I'm glad, Jessica, it's important that you said, first of all, it's a short session today. Mental health, you can spend a day in live webinars, it'll still not be enough,
Yeah.
right? So here we are speaking for a half hour, which is honestly quite unfair. So let's move on. Varsha, hey Varsha, how do you identify whether what's happening is actually affecting your mental health? Not every time you feel low, that you feel like you need medical aid. We covered it to some extent in the beginning, but you want to add something here, Jessica?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you, Varsha. So it's a question of duration. So again, going back to diagnostic criteria, they usually say like 2 weeks or more. So how long has it been happening? Um, I would say, like, how long has it been happening, and how severe is it? So
Mhm.
you can feel really low, like low for a really long time. So that's one way. Or you can feel really low, for a really long time. So, kind of looking at both of those things, right? Like how severe and how long are the two things to really look at. So if it's really severe and it hasn't been that long, still a problem. If it's really low grade and it's been a long time, it's a problem. So those are the two things to look at: severity and duration.
Severity and duration. All
Yep.
right, that makes it a little bit more clear. Hopefully, Varsha, that helps. All right, fantastic. Another very specific question from Vivek here. How do you deal with OCD, which I'm guessing is already there, not only during career transition, but it's already there? And how do you deal with all of that going on during the middle of a career transition?
That's really interesting. I would need to know more about how that is showing up during the career transition. I'm not clear enough about the ways that that's impacting the career transition. So maybe you can write in and give a little more detail.
Yeah. What would you like to know, Jessica, about this about OCD from him?
So just what are the behaviors that are impacting in specifically the career transition? So I understand what OCD is and what that can look like, but how is it impacting the career transition itself?
Okay, thank you. So Vivek, if you could just answer that, if you're still watching live, just answer that so that Jessica can give you some more informed, advice based on that.
Yeah.
All right. Then we have Saurabh here who's asking about work pressure and how to deal with success of others.
This
Thank
is
you,
a great
Saurabh.
question.
You're a human being, Saurabh. So anyone who's like, I'm so happy for them all the time, you are lying to your face.
Yes. And who hasn't dealt with that? Like, raise your hand if that's not like everybody feels this,
Raise your hand, whatever you're watching. Put your hands in the air.
everybody feels this way sometimes. Yes. I mean, so common, so common that I wouldn't even call this a mental health issue. I would call this a human issue. Again, severity is something like that you would have to look at. Like, is the pressure that you're feeling and the feelings that you're feeling related to this? Do they get to you so much that they impact your life? Or is it like the twinge that everybody feels like, right? If they're getting to you so much that they're really impacting your life, then I think part of it is like looking at your own paper, right? Like, what are you doing that's awesome? What would you like to do? So I'll tell you a little story here. I have a friend who is a coach, and she's actually a New York Times best-selling coach. And if I told you her name, you might know who she is. And I felt
Can you share her name or not
Cheryl
relevant?
Richardson. Her name is Cheryl Richardson. She's a self-care coach.
Okay.
And I know her personally, like she's a friend, right? And before I was a coach, I would hang out with her and I'd be like, oh man, like I want to do what she does. Like, that's so awesome. And I would feel that way. And then I realized I can do that. Like, why can't I do that? So sometimes those feelings are just an indication of who you want to be and what you want to do. So they may just be a guide of how you want to grow. So that can be something you can use to help you grow in a direction that you want to grow. So if you're seeing other success and it's making you feel like, oh, maybe I'm comparing myself to them. Maybe you're dealing with not feeling the success that you want to feel and maybe wanting to push yourself in a direction. If it's feeling like too much pressure and you're just wanting to take the kind of the pressure off, then that's a different issue. And pulling back and taking that pressure off is something that that you'll have to look at instead, and then maybe talking that through. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Great answer, Saurabh. I hope that helps because hopefully for a lot of us, I mean, others have not asked this, but you were thinking it. Let's be honest here, right? And if you're not, you're lying through your teeth. Like we've all been there, every single one of us. If we have a pulse, we compare. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So how can you reframe this the way Jessica is saying, right, Saurabh? So how can you use it as a guide to be where you want to be, and channel that it's possible for this person? That is a great source of inspiration, that it's possible for you as well. And I think I mentioned it on a couple of other live streams, but I want to add it here again. I think I need to add it again and again because I think I need to hear it, if you know what I mean, even though I've said it so many times. In the beginning, when I started out, Jessica, it's so normal to compare, and I'm comparing somebody's chapter 30 to my chapter 0.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, just give up. What a waste of time. It's never going to happen. Why would anybody want to hire you? Look at the competition. It's insane. For a while, what I did was anyone whose success made me feel less than, and it was no fault of theirs, they didn't even know I exist. For a little while, I decided to just stop following them, or anyone whose success made like triggered something in me. And I'm like, it's not about them, it's about me. And then I was secure enough, comfortable enough, right? And then started following them, then genuinely, became happy for them. I'm like, it's possible for them, then interacting with them. And by the way, every one of them is now either on my podcast or on my LinkedIn live. So that's amazing that those feelings of envy, jealousy, insecurity, imposter syndrome, all of that can actually be channeled into something good.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. All right, fantastic. Uh, we have a big one, which you've heard so many times. I can guarantee imposter syndrome. And Adina, I want to say that we did a whole live stream on imposter syndrome back in October, but I think it's one of those topics that I honestly can't learn enough about.
Yeah.
How would you advise Adina to deal with imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I mean, first, it is completely normal. Like, I think the statistic is like 70% of people deal with imposter syndrome. So knowing that it is really it's really normal for it to be there. And then second, to really just understand that it's not real. Like it is imposter syndrome, right? It's like you have to go back and look at what you've done. This is where I feel like a brag file is so important. So keeping track of your accomplishments, keeping track of the things that would be in line with what would make you a good candidate for the position that you're going for, so that you can look and say, wow, really, I am great for this job. Somebody should hire me. So, that kind of thing, I think, really can help. Doing, a 360 with some friends or past coworkers or current coworkers, like getting that kind of feedback about, what you're good at. And just maybe just asking questions, like for this purpose, just asking questions about what are my strengths? What do you know me for? That kind of thing. Just doing that to get that information and keep that in your brag file, so that you have information that really can help boost you up in the moments where you feel like, ugh, I can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, a brag file. Thank you. That's really helpful. Adina, I call it an appreciation station. It's,
I love that.
tomato, it's the same thing. But you need to keep nourishing and feeding that, right? Don't just do it once and give it up because you're still going through stuff. What about COVID achievements? Whatever, all the awesome things you've done, which you take for granted during COVID, to make a brag file on that. We are 36 minutes past the hour. We thought we would do it for 30 minutes, right? So I'm going to take a couple of questions here. And I'm going to take questions which are related to our topic today, mental health. So if you're asking something off topic, so for example, in your case, Ovium, what I suggest you do is put it in the comments, not in the chat, because I will miss the chat once the live stream is over. Put it in the YouTube comment section of this video, and I'll answer you. Then I have another question here from Ankur who says, "How do you get over a situation where you're stuck due to work pressure and failed in doing things you applied in your way forward?" You able to get that?
Mm,
You're stuck because of work pressure, right? You can't quit, I guess.
yeah.
What do you do when you can't quit? You want to, but you can't.
Yeah. Um, well, the first thing I do is I question whether you can or can't, right? So a lot of people think, I can't quit, I'm stuck. And I say, really? Right? So I question that assumption and we really kind of dig into that and look at it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you really are stuck, and a lot of times I find that people think they're stuck and they're not, but if you really are stuck, um, then we look at how do we make the best of that situation so that it feels better. So I find very rarely people are in a situation where they're never going to move in the next like 40 years, right? They're never going to grow in that position. They're never going to evolve. So we look at, how can we make this situation better for you so that you feel better about it, so that you're getting more out of it, that, things that you want. So then we say, okay, what is it that would make this position feel better? Do you want to be growing? Do you want to be learning? Do you want to be, managing people? Like, what is it that would make this feel better to you? And how can we get from here to there in a position like this?
Little steps, right? It's very overwhelming. Ankur, it's very overwhelming. So, what are the little things you can do? You do have control over certain things, right? And
Mhm.
focus on that. So, in the interest of time, we can't stay there more. We need to move on, but there's a lot more to that.
Yes.
Wayne is asking, I have problems with nervousness and anxiety when I'm changing my job. I don't know why this is happening to me, but I'm scared of it. Can you please help me with some guidance on how I can work on it?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so again, a lot more questions and information that I would want in answering this question. Um, but I'm guessing it just with this context that the nervousness and anxiety is not something that's present all the time, but it's something that is in the context of changing the job. And that leads me to believe that it's all about the situation. So, like, what's going to happen next? And, am I going to mess something up? And who's there? And, like, right. So, there's all these questions, and that it scares this person.
Yeah.
So, what I would suggest is make a list of all those ideas and thoughts and fears that are running through your head and see um, one. So, this is a great cognitive behavioral therapy exercise, right? Um, one, are there things that you can answer so that you don't have to be scared of them anymore? Two, are there things that you can kind of cross off the list that you don't have to be afraid of because they're just kind of loops in your head, like things that you're like scared of that you don't need to be scared of because it's just like, just your mind running, right? Um, are there things that you can calm yourself down about because you can just handle it, right? It's like what if there are people there that and they're not going to like me? Well, you know what? You're going to be okay about that because there's going to be people there that do like you, and if there are some people there that don't like you, that's just the way life is, and it's going to be okay, right? Like how can you do a cognitive behavioral exercise to help yourself with the fears that are going through your mind? So list them all down, go through each and every one of them, see how you can handle all of them. If there are some outstanding, see what you can do, or just have a couple of focus on, and then when you go into the job, focus on dealing with those few up front instead of having a million running through your head.
All right, that's really, really helpful, Wayne. And I think that this advice will also help because I saw this question from Ashu. How can I overcome mental exhaustion from the previous job? It's like carrying forward to the new place, right?
Mhm.
So, highly recommend you watch the replay. And cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, Doesn't have to be rocket science, but listen to this advice again. And Jessica, if I can ask for one thing, if you see certain resources, I'm sure there are so many online, that you see a couple of them that are very special, like specially like focused in a certain area, specialization, would you sort of link them into the comment section of the video on LinkedIn? So you guys watching on YouTube and Facebook, see the comment section on LinkedIn. Would that be okay,
Yeah,
Jessica?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Fantastic. So we have, there's like so much we've talked about, right? And I want to just read off a couple of very helpful comments here from our audience. Social media plays a big role in comparisonitis, and especially when a lot of things in social media aren't true, but it looks like it's true, right? And
Mhm.
our coach friend in Finland says, how about not comparing to others, but tracking your own journey, where you came from, what you achieved? Compare yourself versus where you are today,
Yep.
past versus present. That's always really, really helpful. Risto, thank you so much. So fantastic. So hopefully this was helpful to our viewers. Please give us lots of hearts and likes and emojis. We love the little dopamine. We all like dopamine once in a while. And Jessica, for like your takeaway message for someone who's watching here, what is that, like, like they've been paying attention, maybe they're doing something around the house, they're walking the dog, or they're just distracted. One thing you want the person who's watching today, what is that one thing you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what is going on in your life, there is a way forward, right? There's always a way forward to deal with whatever's happening. There's help out there, there's information out there. So don't give up.
Don't give up. Very there were, parts of our conversation were such practical advice, right? And at the same time some tried and tested advice, exercise, nature, etc. But do watch it again. I think this is really helpful. You got to hang in there. You just can't give up. You've got this opportunity, make the most of it. So yeah, thank you so much, and I highly recommend you check out Jessica on LinkedIn, and your website is wishing well coach, wishing WELL coach.com. So love the name. We were like talking about the sweet spot. You need to trademark it because that's you.
I know that would have been smart, right? It would have been good. But yeah,
Yeah.
come check me out. And I do like to write what I think are fun posts. So
Yes.
um,
I completely agree with that, and I completely recommend, because Jessica is different in that sense, because she's not a classic career coach, but she's also someone who's had experience with working with people with, you said substance abuse, etc. So you've seen some real
oh yeah,
darkness, like
oh
really dark stuff, right? And whatever most of us are going through, I'm not saying I know you. I'm not saying I know your situation, but compared to some of the stuff you've seen, Jessica, the the rest, it can be managed, right? It's
yes.
not that bad.
Yeah. There is hope. There's hope.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob says, hey, you guys are, I think you both are in Boston, right? So you're like neighbors.
Yes, we are. Hi, Bob.
Awesome. Thank you guys for watching, and I shall see you next week at the same time. We're going to have Ed Han here on screen, and we are going to be talking about ATS systems, which is another controversial topic, applicant tracking systems, what you need to know as a job seeker. So thanks again for joining us live. Really appreciate it, Jessica. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.